Welcome back to the Best Ball Boardroom. Gosh, we've been doing this for almost 3 months, and I am ecstatic to finally be able to say that tonight we are finally getting football. Yes, it's Zach Wilson. Yes, it's Scrubs, but it is the Hall of Fame game. And especially after what we could have learned from last year, you could have made so much money had you have known what to fade or really who not to fade in last year's Hall of Fame game. We'll talk through it. We are in drafting season. I just did a count. I am 925 drafts through. We are still in the thick of things. But this year, we've got Jalen Hurts. We've got Patrick Mahomes. We've got Josh Allen. They're going in the second round all too often. There is no better person to bring on than to help us understand, do we actually take the elite QBs or do we go for the late round QB? Late round QB creator himself, JJ Zacharyson. How are you doing?
What's up, man? What's up? I got orcas on my mind. I got the Hall of Fame game on my mind. It's been a wild afternoon.
I mean, I'm sure this orca thing has been like in the works for Ursay for weeks, if not months.
Genius.
But
yes.
The timing. Oh, the timing. And then you even throw in, in our world, we have whales, we have fish. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, I don't know which one he falls into, but we know Ursay likes his whales.
Yes, evidently. But it's a genius move to use as a negotiating chip, is to make Jonathan Taylor look like he hates or he supports animal cruelty, essentially.
I mean, even in my group chats, I've got people saying, I think it's turning on Ursay too. Wow, he cares more about the whales. A whale he's probably not even ever talked to. He's definitely never had a conversation, never brought a whale into his trailer. He has Jonathan Taylor.
That's true. Very good point.
I mean, August it's crazy. I mean, this football it's 100% a year-round sport now. But this is when it was like, oh, August, this is the month we start talking about fantasy football. However, we've been doing this for months. But what have you been up to other than, whales and everything else?
Yeah. Just trying to navigate that third round firewall and drafts and such with these running backs and when to get an elite quarterback, all that good stuff. But no, I published a prospect guide back in, the draft season time frame. And then I did my draft guide, which is more season long focused, but obviously some player takes can transfer over and some general strategic takes can transfer over to best ball. Did that, published that at the beginning of July. I've been updating that every week. But that's really been the bulk of it. Do my podcast, all that good stuff.
And this guide, it's only 2 pages, I think. 1 page, right?
Yeah. Just a couple pages long. Yeah. It's over 200 pages of mostly, strategy related stuff. I try to because I know a lot of people are doing player analysis type guides, and I just try to change it up a little bit to give people something a little bit different.
I like it. It is fantastic summer reading. And, tonight, Hall of Fame game, we can't not discuss Josh Jacobs and everything that happened last year with the Hall of Fame game. You mentioned this third round running back aspect. I was loving early picks for these drafts because I could get Josh Jacobs in that third round. And it was beautiful starts when you went Justin Jefferson, Tony Pollard, let's go Justin Jefferson, Jonathan Taylor, and Josh Jacobs. You're like, oh, I am bringing home this championship. And now both those guys falling to late third, if not fourth. What is your kind of just strategic take on these running backs if you're drafting today?
I'm still in on them for the most part. Generally speaking, we see these guys end up playing and end up, at least giving us something. I think the biggest fear with them is definitely more tournament based where, especially like a Josh Jacobs, where Vegas is not expected to be the super competitive team. Not that Indianapolis is either, but I would assume with Taylor, there's just a little bit, there's more outs of him potentially not playing in Indy or him getting some sort of contract, whatever. There's just more outs there for Taylor, it feels like. Whereas with Josh Jacobs, just feel like there's a scenario where they shut him down or he's, decides to not really want to give it his all in week 16, 17, etc. So I understand the risk, but I just think where that point in the draft is, where the opportunity cost isn't nearly as significant, I think it's okay to go that route because to me, at least in my analysis, wide receiver gets pretty flat there, or at least flatter there. The elite quarterbacks are gone. If you were looking to go that route, Mark Andrews is gone. And so it's an easier place to take them, which is why honestly, they've fallen to that part of the draft. Let's be honest, just because the opportunity cost a little bit easier. So I'm still okay drafting them there. Not like overly aggressive, but I still think it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, if we look, so Raiders right now, 6.5 win total. Colts also 6.5 win total. Neither of those really appealing. I think with Jacobs, I have a little more confidence that like it's going to get worked out. Maybe they just throw him an extra million or 2 million. Like he doesn't have that leverage. And it's funny because like when you had the Barkley one, I was like, oh, this Raiders one, it seems personal. But then the Jonathan Taylor one seems even more personal.
Very personal. Yes.
Right. Like Jacobs, it's him as a stance for running backs against the Raiders. Jonathan Taylor, it feels like a stance against the specific person, the owner, per se. So like, and then the back injury, which I'm not sure if it's actually real. I don't think it is, but
yeah,
I'm buying the dips, but I'm scared.
Me too. That's exactly where I'm at too.
Yeah. All right, looking at this draft right now, we got some friends in here. Let's zoom out a bit to get our full landscape. Who I got? I see pick 5, the icon right in front of us, hopefully not sniping us too much. We got LD the GOAT on pick 12, and then Christopher down here, pick 7. I don't know. JJ's not lagging for me. Hopefully I'm not lagging for him. Maybe give it a refresh. I don't know what to tell you. Whew. All right, what has been your, best ball, like, have you been doing Underdog, DK, Drafters, Yahoo, FFPC? What's been your kind of main, I don't know, site? And then we'll get into kind of strategies from there.
Yeah, I'd say Underdog would be pretty much by far the top in terms of like market share of where I'm at. You know, it's interesting though, because I definitely feel like it's the sharpest for sure of all spots. So, you know, I know a lot of people, especially in the season long world, you know, asking questions and talking about it being such a wide receiver heavy environment this year in season long. But, you know, I think in August season long, you know, home league drafts and stuff, it's not going to be nearly like what we've seen in June and July, let's say. But obviously, you know, with the Underdog influence, this is the way that people probably should have just been drafting always. I mean, like I've always been a big proponent of Anchor RB, etc. So it makes sense that this is the way things are going.
I thought maybe Cooper Kupp was going to fall. It seems like those first 5 are pretty set in stone. I've actually been taking Eckler ahead of Kelsey, but I'm fine with either. What are you thinking? What do you want to do?
I'm cool with either. I go either direction as well. I just have ended up with a ton of Kelsey. Let's go Eckler. Let's have some fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, for me in the because Kelsey versus Eckler, like I obviously don't want to end up with 0 Kelsey, but I just find it hard to figure, like in a big tournament like this, that I'm going to get burned by being lower on Kelsey, because Kelsey in his age 34 season has to do what he did last year, have an amazing season. You then pretty much want the other tight ends not to be anywhere in contention with him, so he has that large gap. But then also either you're going to have a high-owned Kelsey in week 7 in this tournament structure, or you needed to be able to have Kelsey has a bad playoff week, 15, 16. You have the right tight end that then gets you to 17, and now he's low-owned. A lot has to happen. I think I'm more okay with just kind of, and I'm not fading Kelsey, but I do just see Eckler being kind of a better fit for what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've traditionally been a non-elite tight end drafter, both in best ball, and I mean, I'll take value whenever I get it, obviously. But you know, I've enjoyed going that 3 tight end, sometimes 4 tight end build. You know, when it calls, because I do think there are at least some tools to at least be able to pinpoint some of those guys, and I don't. You know, there's not some horrific tight ends late. I mean, there's guys that should be able to produce, you know, fairly consistently this year.
Yeah, I mean, you've had Hunter Henry, who's not even drafted in every draft. And,
yeah, like Cade Otton types, like those guys who are at least going to get you something, you know, hopefully week in and week out, but at least, you know, give you like 5 or 6 usable weeks this year.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we'll get to tight ends when we get to the end of the draft, but a lot of it for me comes down to you can either have a fantastic medium projection with some of these 18th rounders, or you can get a little risky, but you can find guys that actually have upside. Yep. Maybe it is like a Ferguson or a Musgrave where like, we're not actually sure if they're going to truly be that primary tight end, but if they are, they actually are on, you know, Ferguson with the team could have actually a major, you know, the right profile to actually break out. So there are some things I like there. Coming back around to us, this is the one danger if you do want Eckler is like, are you willing to start running back, or do you kind of reach a little for a wide receiver? What are your thoughts?
Usually Pollard is, if he's there, I'm snagging him. Even with an RB start, and he's there, so that's generally the direction that would go, and just kind of have that anchored down. Ideally you would get a wide receiver there, but I have a really hard time going wide receiver over like Pollard, who that like true RB1 overall in fantasy football outcome for him.
Yeah, it really feels like, I don't know. I like Waddle, and then I'm very happy with the wide receivers before him. But
Yes.
after him, it really feels like if you're going to grab Olave, Higgins, Devonta Smith, you're giving up substantial projected points over grabbing Pollard, Henry. Before, it was the Jacobs Taylor as well. Now, obviously, it's a little more okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so we started off with the running back start. Dash Boy here had Kelsey fall, obviously, with us not grabbing him. Snags Mahomes for the stack. Saw the question in here, and we'd be remiss if we don't talk about it, but what are you doing? What are your thoughts on this Cooper Kupp hamstring injury?
I think that he should, if you had him above Tyreek Hill before the injury happened, I would push him below that. But I have a hard time putting him in that Diggs, basically that massive tier, after the elite wide receivers. Just because we know the upsides there. And looking at what Twitter doctors, etc., have been saying about it, it doesn't seem like they're overly concerned that this is going to be something that's lingering and he should be ready for week 1. And then we obviously know that he's one of the few players that has that like true, like just game changing, edge and upside, at wide receiver.
Yeah. Because when we think about like, I think the risk for him, there is more floor risk for a person who I'm drafting 5th overall, 4th overall than I'd like when you consider both now this re-injury risk for person to his age, as well as that Matthew Stafford. But like, there seems less and less risk with the Matthew Stafford situation. It seems like we're going to get that Matthew Stafford of old, and you can actually get him at a discount if you grab Cooper Kupp. Yes, the re-injury risk, according to the Twitter doctors, I think I saw like it rises to like pretty much double from like 13 to 26% for this type of injury. But I don't know, like the elite winning upside of him having wide receiver 1 seasons is just too great in my mind.
Yeah, totally agree.
All right, coming back around, I think we probably pass on the Jacobs, the Ramondre, Lamar, grab a wide receiver. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine with going Debo here. I'm not like overly high in more of a season-long perspective for a lot of these San Francisco guys, but I'm cool with them in best ball just because we know they're going to have these like random spiked weeks depending on who's getting that usage. I like Keenan Allen a lot this season. So
5 seconds. Give me one of them. We have Eckler.
Debo. We'll go Debo.
Sounds good.
Debo. Yeah.
Sounds good. In general, when you have like an Eckler, are you more or less likely to draft Keenan Allen?
I'm probably neutral on it. I'm not going to force the issue per se, but I don't hate it to start with that stack. I admittedly, I would say I'm mostly neutral with it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think specifically for those two skill players, Eckler and Keenan, they're both kind of winning off volume, specifically in the passing game. So I think like in a 1-game sample size, they probably don't heavily correlate that much. Right. Where like an Eckler and a Mike Williams, I think I actually like a little more, where I'm getting Mike Williams in this 43 spot around later. And both of those can really have great games because Mike Williams doesn't need that, 12 target, 9 reception game that Keenan Allen wins on.
Yep. Makes total sense.
But yeah, so San Francisco skill players, we grab Debo. How are you, obviously you have Ayuk, you have Kittle, you've got CMC, like lots of mouths to feed for a sophomore, almost kind of still rookie quarterback.
Yeah. And look, there's a lot of data to suggest that they're just not like I think a lot of people are drafting based off of what we saw with Purdy last season and how strong the offense was. They averaged 3.83 offensive touchdowns per game when Brock Purdy took over last year. That was just in the regular season. But that number ranks 6th among all teams. If you were to look at season long numbers for other teams since 2011, they were like elite offensively at scoring touchdowns last year. And so I do think that we have to at least bake in some regression there and understand that it's not going to go as cleanly as it did down the stretch last year for them. But even still, we know schematically it's a great offense. We know that the talent of these guys is there. And if you do look at splits with all those players, Debo was the one who, in the small sample, Debo was the one who was able to at least maintain a pretty decent target share and a pretty good usage overall. I from like a season long perspective, like I said, I'm fading these guys way more than I am in best ball. And best ball, I think, is totally fine where they go. But in season long, there's just going to be so many ebbs and flows and ups and downs that it's a lot more difficult to really manage that. Wherein obviously best ball, you're not going to have to worry about it.
Yeah, I think this is the first year that I'm probably going to be overweight on Debo. Just traditionally, like he is a player that we just expected regression. His touchdown rate was insane 2 years ago, and then he was being overdrafted in my mind. But this is the first year that I don't know. Like I think because we have that more pocket passer and Brock Purdy versus like the maybe Trey Lance or in that situation. But then also, I'm just not getting much Ayuk. Like the data when Debo was on the field, his target concentration was just substantially higher. And it's like Ayuk and Kittle really flourished when Debo was hurt. All right, we're back on the clock here.
Cool with wide receiver here.
Okay. Taking a look at what we have. There's a bring back for Terry McLaurin. There's Christian Kirk, Drake London.
Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion. I mean, I'll say this. I'm one of the weirdos that likes Drake London this year.
Okay.
I know that there's a lot of people that don't, but I think McLaurin makes the most sense for the current build, probably.
Okay, I think that makes sense. So give me Drake London versus Kyle Pitts. Which one are you drafting more often and why?
Yeah, so I'm drafting London more, and I know this is like not the take that a lot of people have. So I totally get it. People listening are probably like, "Well, that's strange." Pitts is banged up a little bit. We have to remember that. There's some, Dr. Chow has talked about how he might not be 100% all season long. So there's at least a little bit of fear there. But London just hit so many strong peripherals last season as a rookie that in those peripherals in those numbers being incredibly predictive for future success. I understand that the offense is a low volume offense. But at the same time, I feel like that's that's why he's a 4th round pick. That's why he's a late 4th, oftentimes, is because of the low volume and the quarterback situation. I always like to place these players in different environments and ask myself, where would they be drafted if they were in this different environment? And to me, London would probably, in a moderate environment, would probably be drafted closer to where Chris Olave is going, because his peripherals, his yards per route run, targets per route run, all the stuff that we look for in wide receivers was just as good. Not quite as good as Olave last year, but was really, really strong. It was better than Garrett Wilson's last year. And so I'm really just like looking at a guy like London. He also has some touchdown regression favorably that should hit him this year. He should have scored closer to 8 touchdowns last year. He had 4. He actually had just as many end zone targets last year as AJ Brown did, despite the low volume in that offense. So I just think there's a lot of this baked into his ADP inherently. And then if you look at market trends historically, second year wide receivers in that running back dead zone area, generally pretty good bets. That's another reason why I like Christian Watson this year. And I'm just getting these guys who environmentally might not look unbelievable. And I totally understand that. But they're guys who are are talented enough where I feel like I could get burned if I just totally fade.
Yeah. Shout out to Hap over here. Ballsy going Drake London instead of the Joe Burrow with his double stack up here, but gets Burrow to fall back to him. That must have been a nice relief. We are coming back on the board. Again, we still went running back, grabbed 2 wide receivers. Bunch of wide receivers that I still like in this area. Hawkinson just goes as well. Could go, we got Eckler for Herbert. What are you thinking?
Man. We could go Herbert. We could go, I'm down with one of the 2 wideouts that are there too. I don't know, where are you at?
I don't hate anything here. I'd probably go with a wideout. Maybe I'd go with Deontay for an ADP.
Let's go Deontay. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. I'm good with that. Yeah, Herbert, like I'm really big on the Chargers offense, but
I haven't drafted a ton of Herbert. That's the no. Yeah. I haven't really been there at that ADP, mostly because I feel like it's a pocket where you can get replaceable production maybe a little bit later. I understand the upside with Herbert. It's just without the mobility, that kind of production is usually a little bit more replaceable.
So it's funny. I don't know if you know, but last year I took a major stand, drafted 0% Justin Herbert.
I remember that. Yeah.
Okay. Worked out very well. Granted, there were some injuries. Maybe I got a little lucky. But the argument then was Jalen Hurts, Lamar, Mahomes were all drafted right around him. Like he was going in that, I think it was like 4th, 5th. You had Jalen Hurts, Lamar, like right there. And I was like, there's just no way Herbert is able to match the upside because of the ground aspect without having just an extremely efficient, high passing offense. possible, but like you've got to hit that top 10% outcome. This year, he's still going at the same spot, but those other QBs have now moved up about 2-3 rounds. So I've got a lot of, I think he's probably like I don't know, top 3, top 5 most owned QB of mine, because you can stack so easily. I want to make a bet on that offense, but if I'm drafting him, I don't want to have it with just Eckler. I want to have a pass catcher.
Yeah, right. So I should say, like, when I say the pocket piece, it's more so like I'm looking at, I mean, I have Deshaun Watson's one of my highest rostered, right? And so I'm to the point where if I'm staring at, this round, I like a lot of the wide receivers and where they're going. So I'm going to go the Deontay, the Marquise Brown route, one of the Seattle wideouts at the turn or something like that. I got a ton of Lockett and JSN. And then, looking at the quarterback landscape in general, I'm just like, okay, well, I see a similar ceiling, if not a higher ceiling, with a guy like Watson. So if I'm going to get a middle round quarterback, I usually opt that direction. But it's very easy. Like I said, it's very easy to see the upside of the Chargers offense this year with the offensive coordinator change.
All right. So rewind a little. Debo over Lamar is crazy. We got some feedback. We could have taken Lamar here at the 30. You are Mr. Late Round QB. What are you doing? We never discussed with these top 3. We'll throw in top 4 QBs.
Yeah, look, the difference between when I, published the Late Round Quarterback ebook back in 2012 versus now is that back then the quarterback position was not nearly as predictable as it is now, because the market now understands the importance of rushing, and we're getting more mobility at the quarterback position than we did back then. And so, back then in 2011, to be honest with you, like the 2011 season was very, very much like the 2022 season at the quarterback position, where you had these elite guys. You had a pretty bad season for mid-range QB1s. And so that just separated those elite guys even more. And then what we saw was the highest ADP that we've seen from the quarterback position really ever that following season. And we're seeing that get bumped up again this year. So I do think there's a little bit of a market overcorrection with some of these elite guys. With that being said, it's a little bit different than in 2012, when it was very obvious to not play into that overcorrection, because those players do project to have very easily, the highest projection, the most stable projection. We can feel more comfortable with it because of the mobility factor. So, I'm sprinkling it in. I'm a little bit underweight, but I'm still getting them, enough that I'm not going to be completely, burned if they do repeat what they did last year.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. Looking at our team right now, a lot of late QB options here. Maybe we grab one, middle one. We can see how it plays out. Couple running backs at the top of the queue. There is Dobbins. I'm actually a little more bullish on Dobbins with with some of the camp reports, but also we have Addison, we have Gabe Davis. We can go Pickens for a double pit. What are you thinking?
So I'm really overweight on Addison this year. I think he's a very strong pick at ADP. Even though he doesn't necessarily fit the build perfectly, we just, we obviously need as many wide receivers as we can. He would probably be my pick here.
He gives us a Cousins opportunity, which could be, hey, we grab Cousins and then we grab 2 of Purdy, Pickett, and Sam Howell. So I do like in this area where it's like, okay, I don't know, maybe in a round we'd be like, maybe Darren Waller, because then we grab Daniel Jones. Like when I know that I don't have that elite QB and I'm probably building for that 3 QB build, I don't hate grabbing one of those 100 to 120 ADP guys.
Yeah, no, totally with you.
All right, so we grabbed 2 running backs. We got 4 wide receivers. Elsewhere in the draft, nothing too wonky. No one has 2 QBs. No one has 2 tight ends or anything. Seems like a pretty straightforward, sharp draft. But good to kind of keep in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Addison, I'm looking at playoff schedules. In my mind, has the second best playoff schedule. So in general, I've been going after Minnesota a decent amount too. Don't hate that Green Bay Week 17 matchup. What are your thoughts kind of on projecting out for a tournament like this? Playoffs, weather, Week 17. How's that kind of go into your process?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely look at it. Definitely important. Minnesota's another one where, like, in a regular season long league, and that's the perspective that I'm always coming from with my player analysis and stuff. Like someone like Kirk Cousins, I just don't care about, right? Because he's going to be a low end QB1. I don't need that for a managed league. But in this scenario, he's just very stackable, very easy to stack because Addison is just sitting there all the time in the middle rounds. But and obviously he can still have those spiked weeks, and then. You have an environment for Minnesota too. Last year they hit that environment pretty frequently where, They were pretty bad through the first 3 quarters of every game, and then they were able to come back and win these close games, and they threw the ball a lot. I don't know if we're going to see as favorable of an environment this year, but the schedule is pretty favorable, like you said, down the stretch. And I'm a believer in Addison in particular, and the talent, and he really landed in the perfect spot for him in particular, because he was never going to be an alpha. Like, that's just not the kind of player that he is. So him, being next to Justin Jefferson and being able to play both inside outside, I think is gonna be really big for him.
Okay, we do have some flexibility here. Kyle Pitts goes there. I'd say honestly, we can go any position here, probably besides QB. Dave Montgomery, Rashad White, Darren Waller, another wide receiver.
I mean, I might just go Montgomery here just for that contingent upside he's another guy that I've drafted a lot of. That would probably be my pick.
I don't hate it. We get a little Detroit-Dallas correlation.
Yep.
I do think Pollard can correlate with a guy like Montgomery just from a shootout, Dallas needing to pass standpoint. Sets us up if we wanted to maybe go with a hyper fragile build, 3 different bye weeks too. So one more running back could be in play, or we grab two running backs later.
Yep.
I don't hate it.
Yeah, Montgomery's just one of those dudes where, you see this pretty much every year, where there's just some guys in those middle rounds where, they might be their RB2 on their team by ADP, but their projection is basically where their ADP is sitting. And that's what I feel like with Montgomery, like how he's just generally projected is where he's sitting, but there's that contingent upside. Like if Jahmyr Gibbs weren't part of the picture at all, like let's just say he gets injured during the final stretch. I mean, Montgomery's probably looking like a 3rd round pick, like in fantasy, I would assume he's probably around that like Najee range at least, right? Because the offensive environment's so decent. And so you can get that where you're getting it, but all the while still get, the Jamal Williams role. Plus, I think Montgomery's going to see more of a target share than Jamal Williams did. Obviously, he's not going to see as many opportunities as Jamal Williams did at the goal line, but to me, he's a really solid pick this year.
Yeah, I like that. And so upside is always something that I like talking about, because I think it's just colloquially, like, I don't know, oversimplified is probably the right word. And so we think about like, okay, upside, and we're like, oh, well, this could happen. But I think it's also equally important to think about, okay, well, what's the likelihood of that happening?
Yeah.
And so if we consider James Conner, Rashad White, and Dave Montgomery, their upside, I don't know, how did we get them to being an RB1? James Conner needs to be healthy. They need to stick with him. And that offense needs to be I think the offense needs to be substantially better. Yes, I know he was an absolute volume monster at the end of last year when Kyler was down, but like Rashad White still, like you need the offense to be better. Dave Montgomery already has really solid projections. If Jahmyr Gibbs isn't actually that good, if he takes longer to develop and they don't really have trust in him, if he gets hurt, the offense is already there. The role is already there. His upside, I think his likelihood of hitting it is just substantially higher than someone like James Conner, Dalvin Cook, some of these other ones we see playing out.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. You have to have that contingent upside, or at least look at it that way. Like someone like Rashad White, the upside for him is like, well, what if he's like an 18% target share back? Like maybe they just go that direction with him, right? But when you have the environment already embedded there for Montgomery, a lot of these guys are being drafted where they're being drafted because the environment themselves, like we don't even know where Dalvin Cook's going to play. Rashad White and James Conner, both in pretty crappy environments. Even like Miles Sanders, who I think is just a little bit overvalued. Like even like a Miles Sanders, just environmentally, it's not like the offense is that spectacular or projected to be that much better than like a Connor or a White. And so, I mean, with Montgomery, you at least feel pretty confident that they could be a top 10 offense this year pretty easily. And then, on top of that, you get the upside of another player in that backfield, getting banged up.
Yep. All right. We have next pick up. Let's see. Reports about James Cook have been pretty positive. He could give us a hyper fragile build. I'm a big Treylon Burks fan, and that's falling from an ADP value standpoint. Cortland Sutton also is not a horrible one with the recent injury there. I'd probably go Treylon here. But what are your thoughts?
I'm cool with that. Yeah, I'm cool with that. You could even, I mean, I'm not saying that we should, but you could even like think about. No, it's okay. No, I was looking at where we're at. Yeah, Treylon makes sense.
Okay. We'll go with that. Were you thinking QB, or what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say in the next round coming back, you could try to pair like Freiermuth with Deontay or something, and then force the Pickett play later.
It's not horrible. So one of the Cousins things I wanted to bring up is when I'm looking at potentially drafting Cousins, you need to know you're fighting against at least one, maybe two people, Hawkinson and Justin Jefferson drafters. The nice thing here is Hawkinson's with Josh Allen and Justin Fields is with Justin Jefferson. So we're not expecting either of those teams to really be fighting to grab. And also Josh Allen, I believe, is bye week 13, which is the same as Minnesota. Let me just make sure. Josh Allen is 13, and then Cousins is also 13, and then Fields is 13 as well. So it's highly unlikely one of those two teams grabs Kirk Cousins. So if we want to wait to take Cousins at 115, I don't think it'll be an issue.
Yeah, it's a very, very good point.
Honestly, if it's available at 115, we could probably wait till 126 because it goes this way.
Yeah, right.
And as we said, it's possible one of these other just randomly does, but we'll see what's available and what we want to gamble with.
And it's especially true because Cousins it's one of those quarterbacks where there really aren't that many stackable options. You could go like an Osborne route or something, but it's
ugly.
It's silly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I agree. All right. And worst case, if we were to miss out on Addison, we did just pick up another third QB stack partner for the Tennessee angle there.
Yeah.
I mean, Freiermuth, it's a little bit of a reach at 102, but I don't hate it.
Yeah, I mean, Freiermuth's another, again, it's not, I don't generally attack tight end in this pocket because they're generally like Greg Dulcich is where I really start to get excited again. Cause I do think the upside is at least intriguing and a little bit David Njoku too. I usually am actually just drafting Njoku straight up over Freiermuth just because the Deshaun Watson builds, etc. But I mean, Freiermuth still screams floor more than ceiling. That offense does in general. And a lot of the Pickett stacks, I don't think that you need to force two per se. It was just, a dead-ish area of this draft in particular.
Now, is there any Pittsburgh bias in this coming from you?
Zero. I promise you there's zero there.
All right. So we have a few tight ends on the board. We could also go with Charbonnet, P. Ryan, Brian Robinson, all fine running backs I like in this spot. We could take a falling to a naked. What are you thinking?
I mean, maybe we do just go Freiermuth here. It's just very, very dead. Just one of those spots in the draft. You feel uncomfortable though.
I do. I'm trying to see if that to go with the running. Okay, we'll go. We went Freiermuth.
Yeah, let's do it. We're forcing the Pickett the Pickett move a little bit here, but
yeah, we are. It's also with Evan Ingram just sitting there, who I think, and I put this on Twitter, and I have a tweet that I need to post about it. Is I think Ingram is the worst tight end pick in drafts right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's exactly. I'm just to me, he was a volume driven tight end with a horrible ADOT last year, which can be completely replaced with new weapons in that offense. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm totally with you on the Ingram take.
8 of his games last year, he had 4 or fewer targets.
Yeah.
Targets. And now we're bringing in a new alpha in Calvin Ridley. Oh, and a running back in Tank Bigsby, who's actually going to catch some passes for them. Oh, right. And they drafted a tight end in the second or third round, who's actually has a 10.8 average yards per reception in college. Just no. But then I say that, and I literally drafted him once or twice in the past couple of days because it was 2 rounds past ADP, and I was like, God, someone's going to put this on Twitter and just be like, here's Justin. He's saying one thing, but
yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Okay. All right. Falling back around.
In that spot, did you have a running back that you would have forced there above? Because it was, to me, that area is, and I'm very overweight on Charbonnet, but I've been scared off from the shoulder and stuff a little bit more. But in that particular spot, it just feels so dead. It feels like the guys you're getting are the same guys you're getting in the 12th. You know what I mean?
Honestly, I would have grabbed Kadarius Toney if he fell to us one more.
Yeah.
Even though I don't love it as a player, but just from hey, I'm getting some ADP value from where he's been drafted for the majority of BBM. Not really planning on grabbing many wide receivers after this. Yeah. Rashad Penny, I was also going to prioritize if he fell to us, but those two went right before us.
Yep.
And if Charbonnet didn't have the injury,
I would have smashed Charbonnet.
Decent amount there.
Yeah. I'm very.
I do like P. Ryan. I do have a decent amount of P. Ryan, but if I'm drafting a 4th there, I didn't want to do a bye week issue because we maybe are only doing 4 running backs in that spot.
Yeah.
So that was just kind of the thought process that was going through.
Yeah.
I cannot believe Evan Ingram just keeps falling. Like, get him away. Get him.
They're just tempting us.
Someone do it. I think we have a Trevor Lawrence drafter right here. Mike Dice would tell. Wow. If he falls to Mike Dice at 118,
that'd be nice.
That'd be fancy. So we have that Cousins still on the board if we wanted to do it. But again, I don't hate waiting on it, given what we know about the situation. And we'd have to have someone else that we like to pick, though.
Yeah, that's the key. Like, I'm not, like Ingram we just talked about. Jacoby Myers isn't really huge for, like, I'm not like jumping for joy over Myers. My thought process is to probably just snatch Cousins and just see. Oh, yeah, the Prescott play is actually interesting too because of the.
Okay. We also have Brian Robinson. I like Brian Robinson because we know Dak and Kirk are available here. Most likely, one of them falls. One of them will us.
Fall. Okay.
And I do think like Brian Robinson versus the running backs that are after this.
Yeah, you get the game stack a little bit. Yeah, I dig it.
It's a decent gap. Yeah, we got that game stack, and we could go a hyper fragile 4 RB build.
I think I would go this. Yeah, I would go this 4. That's fine with me.
Yeah, unless like we have a crazy streaming value later on that we love. I like that. We know it's going to be a 3 QB and probably 3 tight end. So if we gives us some flexibility in like a 3-4-8-3, I think that's a decent build here.
Yep, I dig it.
I saw someone else was trying to guess what our build was going to be today. Not today, Goat. I think we're looking at a 3-4-8-3. Your 3-5-7-3 though, it's still possible. It's still alive.
Yeah.
All right. So a couple of the questions here. Let's go through this. Matt asking, how bullish on Connor if Murray were to play 14 games? So, I don't think Kyler plays 14 games, but let's say he comes back mid-October and we're saying 12 to 14 games, something like that. Connor a value?
Here's another thing with Connor. So like to me, he screams a player who can exceed ADP expectation, but probably not smash. And I also have this fear that we know Arizona is likely to be pretty bad. And what if they try to get some of these other guys some run later in the season? What if they sign a guy? When you look at depth charts in August, number one, they can obviously change, but don't overstate your ability to understand what coaches are thinking about those depth charts. I feel similarly about Miles Sanders in Carolina, where, Chuba Hubbard, who actually was pretty good last year, especially towards the tail end of last season. And then, Raheem Blackshear, who could easily take some of that passing down work. I think that we overstate our ability to know who truly is, can absolutely the best running back in a certain backfield. Now, is James Conner the best back in that backfield? Yeah, sure. But, he's not necessarily at the age of what that team build currently looks like and where they're trending. There's a non-zero chance that they just are like, yeah, we're going to give, Keontae Ingram more run in week 17 or something like that. And then all of a sudden, James Conner, from a value standpoint, is not helping you win. So that's the other piece of the problem, in my opinion, with a guy like Connor.
I'm in complete agreement there. I think most scenarios, he actually is a decent advanced rate player. There goes Cousins, red zone, grabbing Justin Fields and Kirk Cousins with the same bye week. We'll see how that plays out for him. But with the James Conner, they're projected to be the worst team in the league, and I don't think it's even that close. And why are you going to have he's 20? James Conner maybe 28. Let's check real quick.
Yeah, he's 20. And he's in year 6, which is another bad mark for middle round running backs historically from a market trend standpoint. Like, to me, like, I've been drafting a lot. Like, I draft Rashad White over James Conner consistently because at least from a team environment standpoint, they're going to want to continue to get a look at what he can do as a true workhorse 3-down back. And, everyone's concerned about them signing another running back, and maybe they do, but at the same time, why? Like, there's just no incentive for them to really, like, the Buccaneers to really, like, go for it right now because they're not going to be competitive. So, I guess Dak is the pick here. Yeah.
I love it. I mean, hey, we got the Pollard aspect. We have the week 17 with Detroit as the bring back. We're getting 2 rounds of value on a great QB. Happily do it.
Smash. But yeah, that's just sort of the way that I view those like middle round guys is like, you got to think from like a team level too, of what they might be thinking about these players and their usage, because at the end of the day, running back in particular, is a coaching decision in terms of how they're using these players, and volume is what's driving the game for us. And so the coaching decision is what's driving a lot of this production and fantasy points for us. So it's an important thing to at least have in the back of your mind in terms of like range of outcomes. Don't say, James Conner is absolutely not going to play in week 16 and 17, but at least know that it's a possibility that something like that could happen.
Yeah. Rachaad White ended up going at 87. We took Dave Montgomery at 78. I'd be lying if I said I thought we'd leave this draft without Rachaad White, because I think your ranking is quite high on him.
It is.
Do you why would you do you have him lower than Dave Montgomery? I know you talked about the contingency upside for Dave Montgomery. Is that more of a medium projection versus upside?
Definitely different in season long and best ball too, right? Where with Dave Montgomery, there's going to be more ebbs and flows just naturally. Rachaad White's going to be an easy like plug and play on an anchor RB type squad in your RB2 spot. But there's just a lot of data that suggests that if you can get middle round running backs who are basically locks to get a 10% plus target share, which in my opinion, Rachaad White kind of is. I mean, there's not much competition in that backfield. There's not that much competition on that team aside from the two wideouts, obviously, for him to be able to get there. And he was a prolific pass catcher in college. In my prospect model, he comped really closely to David Johnson, which, ironically was a running back that Bruce Arians drafted in Arizona. And then Bruce Arians now in the front office in Tampa Bay goes after a guy like Rachaad White. I mean, I'm high on him for sure, but I don't think that, there's just, it seems like a cop-out answer, but there are some players that I'm going to be more inclined to take in this environment than a standard, like my draft guide's about season long, right? And helping people win their leagues at all levels of season long. And it's just a different type of environment because you're having to use your predictive methods each week in a season long managed league. And it's a lot easier to look at a guy like White, who is going to lock into that like decent target share, have decent production, maybe not have like sky high ceiling unless he really hits as a player. So I'm still getting a lot of exposure in best ball from that perspective, but David Montgomery has more upside, natural upside than a guy like White. So I'm going to go that route in this environment more so than a season long one.
I think that makes sense. We are coming back in the clock, but I do have some more questions about that. We see right here, back-to-back QB going right here. We have multiple people who kind of went back-to-back pretty quickly, or in at least picks with these three out here. I don't want to jinx it, but I'm going to at least put this in the queue.
I was going to say, is he still there?
That one fits out well for us. Our actual only two from there we go. We'll take him. Yeah, building a little backdoor with that Dallas stack, which I like.
Yep.
Just keeping an eye out. So let's just at least throw him in the queue. 172 pick. His ADP has fallen so far, but at least we want to keep an eye on him. Maybe at that 174, or if we felt risky, we could go 163. Rest of the build. So we have the 1-4-6-1, pretty good on running back. We've decided probably two more wide receivers. We can figure out from who we're going to stack with, and then those two QBs, two tight ends.
Yep, I dig it.
All right, we were talking about upside. I was going back and forth with Dink earlier today on Anthony Richardson, where obviously, report came out again today. Anthony Richardson took all the first team snaps. I'm putting my likelihood that he is week one starter at probably 75% right now, and that might even keep increasing. What are you doing on him as I consider him a late round QB. It's best ball. He's going in like the, 9th, 10th round usually. Just how are you treating him?
Yeah, I like him a lot. He's someone who I'm going to pull up my guide because I had a stat in there for him because he's a player to target for me. It's actually when you compare quarterback value versus ADP and look at how well they do versus that ADP expectation, rookies and second year quarterbacks actually perform pretty well. And it's a little surprising because rookie quarterbacks are so horrible just in general and for their teammates, etc. But them themselves can be really impactful, mostly when they have that mobility and that upside. We don't have a massive sample here, but since 2011, we've seen 5 top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL draft go and then see. So I'll start over. We've seen 5 quarterbacks. I'm
going to pause you real quick. We are on the clock.
All right.
We have a falling Dalton Schultz, not someone I normally draft.
Let's go Dalton Schultz makes sense.
Okay. other wide receivers,
That's a
Chark.
short. You get that yeah.
It's pretty flat, and I don't think we want a Derek Carr, Matthew Stafford. So yeah,
Schultz allows us also to like go for the home run play at the third tight end spot.
Yeah. I mean, only downside is if we want to go Jake Ferguson, it's another same bye week, but like Freiermuth is bye week 6. So I don't really care that much.
Yeah.
But lots of late tight ends that we have options for. All right, hit me again with it.
Okay.
I really want to hear this Anthony Richardson.
So we don't have a massive sample here, but there's been 5 quarterbacks who were drafted in the top 10 in the NFL draft since 2011 who ended up playing the majority of their games as a rookie, and then they hit 5 rush attempts per game. Those guys were Deshaun Watson, Cam Newton, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, and Robert Griffin. 3 of those guys ended up scoring 21 or more fantasy points per game. The other 2 were over 17. So the chance that Anthony Richardson, just given the rushing production, the chance that he completely falls off the face of the earth, I think the only chance that happens is if they don't play him, period. Like I think if he's on the field, we're going to see fantasy production. Because remember, the mobile quarterback stuff, I think people think that means ceiling. It really means floor. And then where the ceiling comes into play is when these guys have good passing statistics, which is what we started to see, like when Cam Newton had that MVP season and he blew up and he looked great because he was able to do both things. And then obviously Lamar Jackson really made people realize it in 2019. And so, yeah, I think there's going to be problems probably with Richardson being this like prolific passer, but I don't think that he's going to be someone who really burns you, because I do feel pretty bullish that they're going to just use him because there's just not much reason to not use him,
Okay. So Dink is not here, but I'm going to use his arguments to play devil's advocate here.
Yeah. Well, he's smarter than me too, so this will be good.
Well, we'll see. He's a smart guy, but he's a basketball mind. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
2 was going around earlier. Daniel Jones is around later. Dak, Kirk are all about the same as him. Even if we like Anthony Richardson, based off the way drafts are going, isn't Daniel Jones around later a better bet? Isn't it better to spend a little more and get Tua? Or I'm not going to go by this draft, but like Dak goes right there as well. Cousins is 300 yards every game. Like, how do we kind of weigh that against Anthony Richardson?
Yeah, I think though this is also just a natural. Like, I don't even disagree with that. I think this is like the natural argument of like why you don't need to be overweight on quarterback, and why you don't need to necessarily just like go so nuts at that position in particular, because we know there's going to be a lot of volatility and replaceability on a weekly basis at the position. And so I totally get it from that standpoint. I would still say though, from a season long perspective, guys like Dak, Cousins, maybe Geno to some degree, but I'm pretty bullish on Geno. But like those guys don't have massively high ceilings. Like I said earlier, like we've seen Kirk Cousins finish as a low end QB1 in points per game in each of the last 3 seasons. Chances are it's not going to get much higher. Chances are that's just what it's going to be. So I would rather take that ambiguous chance that this is the dude that's, going to be able to reach that 22 points per game mark.
Yeah. Okay. Is this when we take Kenny Pickett? Or do we grab Brock Purdy first and go Purdy then Pickett?
What do you think? I'd say
who are we fighting with for Pickett?
Yeah, where's the Pickens? I think the Pickens team is coming up. Is my fear.
Pickens is here. He has Trevor Lawrence and no one else.
Yeah, we might want to go. Do we get it?
We got it.
All right, cool.
Good.
Nothing like sweating Kenny Pickett.
I mean, hey, when we drafted Freiermuth and we already reached half a round.
I told you, we're forcing Kenny Pickett with this pick, and we absolutely did. But I think it's fine. I'm actually pretty bullish on Pickett this year. Me being a Pitt grad aside, he at least shows. I mean, he at least had a decent points per game mark with his legs last year, and the Steelers are huge regression candidates from how they scored touchdowns last year. They had more rushing touchdowns than passing touchdowns a year ago. Kenny Pickett had a 1.8% touchdown rate. That was the worst touchdown rate of any rookie quarterback since 2011. And, some people will say, well, that's because Kenny Pickett sucks. But it's really a number that just regresses naturally, right? Like he wasn't the worst rookie quarterback that we've seen since 2011. So I think that like just given the weapons they have there, given that regression, I do think things look more favorably than others do with Pickett. Do I think that he should be ranked as like ahead of like Geno or no? I'm not like, it's not like that, but I do think that he's a decent enough play later where he has the potential with his rushing ability to find the end zone once or twice in a game on the ground, and that's enough to give you that spiked week that you need.
Now, I try not to let my biases impact my, drafting, but I was in Charlotte. So a couple of years ago, maybe a year and a half ago. We'll grab Brock Purdy.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. About a year and a half ago, I'm in Charlotte. I'm watching a football game. This QB pulls off a pretty nice run, kind of scrambles, gets around 20, 25 yards, goes to slide.
Yes, sir.
And then
were you at that game?
I was at that game. They
Me
played
too.
Wake Forest.
I was there too. Oh, did you go to Wake? I didn't know you went to Wake.
I did. Yeah.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
Goes to slide, and obviously the Wake guys, nice guys, good guys at Wake are like, I'm not going to hit this QB. It's a bowl game. This stuff doesn't actually matter.
Right.
He sees they're not going to hit him, fakes the slide, and runs for a touchdown. The game wasn't a blowout at that time, but you
could see the direction it was going. The thing that was so like I went to the ACC championship when Pitt got destroyed by Clemson a few years before that. When ETN was there and stuff. Yeah. And like the environment was just so, it was obviously so Clemson heavy, and like everyone was just, it was like Clemson is such a football school, right? And like everyone was like so rowdy and just so, it was a standard college environment. And then you go to the Pitt Wake game and everyone's like just so friendly and having a good time because like we're just happy to be there. We're just excited about this. It was great. It was so much fun.
Good old Southern hospitality.
Yeah, man.
All right, back to this draft that we are doing. We have our 3 QBs, which I feel like actually worked out pretty well, especially from stacking standpoint. Dak, we have with Pollard and Gallup, with a David Montgomery bring back. Kenny Pickett, we have the double stack with Deontay and Pat Freiermuth. Nothing yet from a bring back, but we'll see if we can maybe make that work. Could grab Noah Fan at the end or something.
Yeah.
And then the third, we have Brock Purdy with Debo, with a Terry and Brian Robinson bring back. We a lot of game stacks, a lot going on in week 17, which I like.
Yeah, I like the squad. I think it's turning out all right.
All right, so one tight end and 2 wide receivers. Usually in those situations, I mean, you can just get so many tight ends at 18, and it does get a little light at wide receiver. So I'd probably say like, hey, 16, 17, let's go wide receiver. Yeah. A lot of training camp buzz that's impacting these groups. I saw Jalen Hyatt already went. Richie James is available. What are you doing in this area? Nothing really from a stack standpoint right now.
Yeah. I mean, we're just looking for guys who can get us something. Corey Davis is one that I've targeted a lot over the last few weeks, especially just because I think that there's a non-zero chance he ends up just being the wide receiver 2 on that team. Bobby Woods will give you just some production. He'll just, be there to get you something. So
we got 15. Give me Renfro or Hardman, because we could probably get those other guys in round 17.
Let's go Renfro.
Okay. I do like Renfro. I understand that like it's hard from a projection standpoint because we don't really know what his role is going to be, because you brought in Jacoby Myers. There were potentially trade rumors. But also like, we are not far removed from 2 years ago.
Yeah, he was great.
When, that's a fantastic like fantasy season. And like, is the offense that much different? I don't think so. If anything, you may actually see more usage of him with Jimmy G than for Derek Carr.
There's also the out with Renfro that they just don't want him on the team anymore, and that he goes to a better environment, and all of a sudden, he's better.
Or Devontae goes to the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, like things can change, and that's what you're looking for in this area where guys can just see that improvement.
I think the Devontae to the Jets thing, the more that like Dalvin doesn't sign there, it may have a little legs. Rodgers gave up like stupid amounts of money for the Jets that and we know how much like he enjoys Devontae. It makes a lot of sense that they're going to use that cap space for something. And if it's not Dalvin, who knows?
Yeah, it'd be crazy. That would definitely piss off a lot of Garrett Wilson drafters.
Yeah, he would definitely take the biggest hit. I think Devontae probably then moves to like around Diggs.
Probably, yeah.
Maybe right after Diggs.
Yeah. Would Wilson be in like the Olave tier then? Maybe even further?
Calvin Ridley. I'm,
The problem, it just goes back to that fire, like that third round where it's just everything just
yeah,
becomes so
yeah.
flat, you know?
It's just we've never seen Rodgers with Garrett Wilson together. And if Garrett
Right.
Wilson's the only one, and obviously Garrett Wilson's extremely talented, like if that's the only option, then they're going to find a way to make it work. But
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
know that Rodgers has Devontae that he can throw to, like,
Yeah.
oof.
No, it
Yeah.
can definitely impact them.
All right, we are back. If there are tight ends, I mean, Dawson Knox falling might be looking what gift horse in the mouth, something like that.
Yeah, my only thing would be if we were trying to force the stack with Ferguson, or if we feel good with Gallup and Pollard.
There's
Knox
still so many tight ends we could go. Do one of these like wide receivers. Is it worth grabbing that Robert Woods?
I would lean Davis over Woods, but I
would go tight end and hope we get Davis later.
That's fine. Yeah, let's do that. That's cool.
I still think Dawson Knox, I think, is the best tight end pick in drafts right now. I do not understand
weekly
why he is going and why he's falling to where he is. Like, we didn't think Dalton Kincaid was going to steal like snaps from the tight end position. And now we're getting more and more reports that like, oh, Dalton Kincaid is going to be like the inline. He's going to play slot.
Right. Yeah. To me, the Kincaid thing is more of and I love Khalil Shakir as a player, but it's more of a knock on Shakir and the depth they have at slot as opposed to Knox himself. And if anything, they would just run more 12 if they like Knox doesn't seem like someone they're going to just like take off the field.
Yeah. All right. One thing I do want to at least put out for discussion are wide receivers: Debo, Terry, Deontay, Addison, Burks, Gallup, Renfro. Pretty solid.
Yeah, not bad.
If there's a running back that we feel better about in this area, is there one? And then would you consider going a fifth running back over an eighth wide receiver?
I'd probably still lean Davis if he's there.
Okay.
I mean, if I'm taking a chance, I am throwing darts randomly at some of the veteran backs, like the Hunts and if Lenny's gone and stuff now, but like I'm at least throwing darts there. I don't mind Ty Chandler, because I think he's going to be if there's a hypothetical pass catcher in that backfield, it would end up being him. And he comped actually to Elijah Mitchell in my model coming out of Carolina. So yeah, that's probably the one dude that I would be throwing the dart at in this particular situation.
So if CMC were to get hurt, what do we think happens to Elijah Mitchell's role, his pass catching role?
To Mitchell, like what it would look like?
Yeah. Well, you're saying you said Tyler Chandler could be the pass catching back.
Yeah.
Pumped him to Elijah Mitchell. I don't think of Elijah Mitchell as like much of a pass catcher.
Yeah, he's not. It was more so coming out. They comped fairly well to one another, like size, production wise. Like Chandler, though, my thing with Chandler is more so when you compare him to the other backs on that roster, that's where he sort of comes out, right? Because Madison, I just don't think is that good of a player. And then Dwayne McBride caught like 5 passes in college. Like he's just he's an early down bruiser.
But that's it.
Yeah. So like literally five receptions in college.
Okay.
Looks like Corey Davis went. I'm cool with going Chandler if you want to go Chandler.
I'm good with it too. I think from around 18, it's honestly more important sometimes just to get points, just to get like someone who's playing. We could do the Allen Robinson for the stack, but
we got two's enough. I feel like with Pickett.
All right, let's do it. Lock in Ty Chandler. Overall, I'm pretty happy with this draft, even though, on brand, late round QB, getting 2 rounds of value with Dak, getting a lot of game stacks. I guess no bring back for Pitt. That's it. But well done. Well done.
I dig it. Yeah, it's a good solid squad.
All right. Speaking of late round QB, the podcast, the website, the draft previews. What do you have going on? What should people be doing in August with their time?
Yeah, you can check out lateround.com. I got the draft guide up there now. You can purchase that. And like I said, it's more game theory and strategy focused as opposed to just like player takes and stuff. I have my players to target and avoid, all that good stuff in there. But it's definitely, hopefully, would make you think a little bit differently about your season-long leagues. And I got my podcast, the Late Round Fantasy Football Podcast. That's sort of my baby. Do that a couple times a week. It'll be 4 times, actually 5 times a week in season upcoming here. So really looking forward to that until about like Thanksgiving time. Then you get really tired and fatigued of doing the same thing over and over again. But early in the season, very exciting stuff. So check it all out, lateround.com.
Doing the same thing over and over again. You're talking to someone who's going to be doing 1,000 best ball drafts this summer.
Yes.
We are kings at doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. This fantastic chat. Thank you for joining us. It is 3:00. I'm about to go over to the OTM stream. You can look at my Twitter. I'm going to be doing a DraftKings draft. So if anybody wants to come join that DraftKings draft or join in chat, we'll be streaming it to the Twitter and then just click through there directly after this. Everyone else, chat, enjoyed it. Great drafting with all of you. And I will be back next week. Have a great weekend, everyone.